All right, hi everyone. Happy Earth Day 2020 to everyone who's participating live today or listening to our on-demand playback session as this webinar is being recorded. My name is Dr. Yvonne Marie Andres. I'm the founder of Global SchoolNet and the co-director, along with my colleague Elena Yulova, for Global Forest Link, where youth collaboratively investigate forest health. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to a very special Earth Day 2020. Meet the Expert webinar with scientists from the Walter Munk Foundation. Also joining us today are Jeffrey Lehmann of Weekend Explorer and Explorer Kids, and students from San Diego, Los Angeles, and New York. A reminder to save your questions to the end and keep your microphone on mute until it's your turn to speak. And now Cynthia Matzke will introduce herself and give you more details about today's awesome event.
Great, thanks Yvonne and everyone. Happy 50th Earth Day. We've got some exciting introductions put together for you. So I'm excited to share with you that a project that our team at the Walter Munk Foundation for the Oceans has been working on for the last 3 years. As a bit of history, Walter Munk was a famous scientist who worked at Scripps Institution of Oceanography for 80 years. He actually passed away just last year at 101 years old, but the gifts that he gave to science live on through us and through the science that he shared with the world. Located in Southern California, we are lucky to have such a rich and thriving ecosystem just offshore. Emerald kelp forests sway and zillions of animals, from tiny plankton to massive whales, live just outside our back door. We wanted to find a unique way to share this with students. And so we worked with artists, scientists, fabricators, and we came up with a project that's a giant tile map called the Map of the Grand Canyons of La Jolla. That really serves to highlight this unique area. And in addition to being able to see it in La Jolla once it opens up, we've created a virtual version of it to share with students all over the world. First thing to know about the map is it's huge. It is 2,400 square feet. That's the same area as 32 school buses or 55 king-size beds. It features bathymetry, which is a way of saying to map the depth of the ocean. And it shows wave refraction patterns that move through the canyons, which create those great waves that surfers love to surf. It shows areas where scuba divers get to dive, an ancient submerged Kumeyaay village. But my favorite part of the map is the animals. I'm a marine biologist, and so I love all things animals. And this map features over 100 life-size animals found just offshore. So when you look at it there, you're looking at an aerial view, and you can see to the side of the map a little bit of shadows from where the palm trees hit. When you look at the map for the first time, what is it that you see? Well, for me, I am a dolphin and whale researcher. Next. And so for me, when I look at it, the first thing that I see is dolphins and whales. We have two friends with us today from the Walter Munk Foundation for the Ocean. We also, I'll talk to you a little bit about our whale friends. Alfredo is going to talk about sardines, and our friend Lauri Blackard-Fried is going to talk to us about Pacific seahorses. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Next. So some of my favorite animals are whales and dolphins. Now I said them like they're two different animals, but actually dolphins are just small whales with teeth. The larger or baleen whales have baleen plates, and I like to actually study them both. So what you're seeing in the center of the screen is a humpback whale. Now, part of what I like to study about whales is the sounds that they make. The humpback whales are known for incredible songs, very complex, and each one sings a different song. Whereas the smaller toothed whales, like the orca that you see up in the corner and the dolphins down below, they echolocate. So when we get in the water and film them, I'm collecting video footage, but also at the same time, I'm also collecting acoustic footage. So that's all of the different sounds they make. And then we analyze those to learn more about the animals. So by the way, the animal that you see in the middle, that baby, or the humpback whale, is actually a baby. They're over 15 years or 15 feet when they're born, and that was just a little guy. The toothed whales, one of the reasons I think that they're so cool is they echolocate to see their surroundings in sound with sonar, much like a bat would do. I also think it's pretty great that if you look at a dolphin and you can see their teeth, sometimes it kind of looks like they're smiling. Next. So the map will feature artistic renderings of these beautiful animals. So there's the dolphin up on top. And then at the online portion, once you click on that, it'll take you to a slide that'll teach you all about facts about the animals. So our team is literally working on this right now. And the slide that you're seeing is one of the base slides. We'll be adding to it video footage, more photos, and for animals that make sound, we'll have some of that acoustic or sound information tied to this too. So make sure you stay tuned because we'll definitely be able to learn a lot more about these animals. Now, when you study a certain animal, like a dolphin or whale, next, you tend to look at the things that affect them. So for me, I began, after looking at whales for a long time and studying them, I began to look at the things that harm them. And it turns out that plastic and fishing nets are some of the biggest threats to whales and dolphins out in the wild. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner, we were on a sailboat and we pulled up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean this big ball of nets. There were 80 different kinds of line in there and all sorts of different creatures and all sorts of different kinds of trash that had gotten caught up in there. And so we actually sailed with it back, but there's a lot of that out there and it can make it difficult for animals like dolphins or whales to come to the surface to breathe. The other image you see that looks like the brightly colored confetti, that was actually from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. If you look at the two other images, you'll see a second sailboat and a bunch of kind of trash and debris underneath it. So many pieces of plastic that were just floating out in the ocean, washed up onto that mass of buoys that you see and created almost what looked like a beach, but it was all plastic. And as you can see from the bottom image, there's a fish that got caught as those nets were moving. So that's one of the reasons why it's very important for us to really think about all of the plastic and fishing gear and things that are getting stuck out in the ocean. So you might wonder, what can I do? Next. Well, humans, we have a wake-up call. If you love the ocean and all the cool creatures that live in there, then we can do things that can actually help them. There's something called single-use plastics, and that's an item that you would use one time and then traditionally gets thrown away. Think of straws or plastic bags, water bottles, or you know those little tiny fork and knife sets that you get to eat food, but they usually break anyway? Well, those kinds of plastic, if we can steer away from those, it will be healthier for the ocean and it'll be healthier for us as well. So show the dolphins and whales some love. Rethink your use of single-use plastics and head out on a fun beach cleanup or go out to a park with a bunch of your friends and you could clean up debris alongside a river because the ocean is downhill from everything. And if we can keep our communities clean, we can actually end up helping a lot of the dolphins and whales and animals out there in the ocean. So I've put a link to the video in our chat bar. If you want to see a video called WakeUp Call that talks a little bit more about plastic pollution that I made with a group of students a couple years ago, take a look at that. But for now, I would like to introduce you to my colleague and friend, Alfredo. Alfredo, take it away.
Hi. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Cynthia. Also, that was really interesting. I didn't know that the map was going to include so much information about every single species. So that seems like a lot of work, but that seems like a great resource for everyone who engages with the map. So thank you. My name is Alfredo Giron. I work for UC Santa Barbara. I am a researcher there. And if you have any questions about my presentation or about anything related to the map, or if you just are curious about something about the ocean, write me an email. I am happy to just get into a nice conversation with you. Next, please. So when I look at the map, the first thing that I notice, and something that many people probably won't even notice, are the hundreds and hundreds of small fish that we have in the ocean. I care a lot about those fish because they come in a lot of different colors, a lot of different shapes, and there are so many kinds, and they each do something particular in the ocean, like cleaning something, like being food for someone else, that it's just so interesting to see all of these tiny fish. And the ones that I particularly think about are these ones called anchovies and sardines. So next, when I am out there diving, working, I normally try to find those small things, those small fish. They have cool colors and they just like to live under the rocks or in different places that just make them really interesting. So the one that I will talk about today in particular, next, is the Pacific sardine. And this is an animal that when you look at it by itself, it's probably this big, like 20, 30 centimeters max, depending on the different varieties. But the most interesting part about these ones is that you will never see one alone. Next. Most likely, every time you see one, you'll see thousands of them. And why are these small fish so important? Well, they are very important because they are food for almost everything in the ocean. Everything that eats fish, well, to some extent, eats some of these smaller fish. Next. For example, dolphins, or next. Even birds, sharks, whales, and even us. Next, please. Some of you might have eaten sardines in a can. So these animals are extremely important for the ecosystem because even though they are really small, they are the chain between the energy that is captured by the plants in the ocean, phytoplankton, from the sun, transformed into meat, and then other animals in the ocean can eat them. So they are this essential link to transfer all of the energy and to keep all of the stomachs in the ocean full. But one of the things that we have to worry about and to care about is that if we as humans extract too much of them, if we fish them too hard, basically, next, we might run out of them. And then what will happen with that? Well, the whales, the dolphins, the sharks, the other animals will not have enough sardines to eat. And that will not be good for the environment. That will not be good for us. That will not be good for the planet in general. So I encourage you to learn a little bit more about these tiny little fish that have such a big role in the ocean. You can look online if you look up sardines or anchovies, or you can watch documentaries. There are some great documentaries about why they are so important, and just learn a little bit more about them so that the next time that you see a little tiny fish, you don't think, oh, it's just a little tiny fish, but start thinking about how important it is for everything that lives out there. And so with that, I would like to introduce you to Lauri, who is going to talk to us about seahorses.
Notice in the right-hand corner, I have some of my contact info, but I am a practicing artist.
A little bit louder, Lauri.
a STEAM educator, and I love to learn new things and explore. Next. As I mentioned, I do big wave paintings. I work in oil on canvas, but I also do murals. At the bottom is showing you a mural that's actually a student work. We add on to it every year. When it's finished, it'll be 16 feet by about 1,000 feet. And so there are drone videos if you want to take a look at that project. I also teach a class called Math and Murals for Sally Ride Science, and those classes will be going online this summer, so you might look for those. Next. So I love seahorses. So one of the things that I find so wonderful on the map is it talks about all the, or illustrates all the different animals that we do have off of our San Diego coast. So this animal is a Pacific seahorse and sometimes called a giant seahorse. It could get up to 12 inches long. Next. So you might wonder how an artist becomes a presenter about seahorses today. Well, as I mentioned, I have a love of learning. I'm a lifetime learner, and I have started studying marine biology 20 years into my career. And now I teach on a boat. It's called the San Diego Floating Lab. We go out with a group of students. We drop a trawl net for about 15 minutes. We bring it in, and we bring in all kinds of amazing animals, one of those being the Pacific seahorse. Next. So what do we do with all these seahorses? Well, most are released back into the wild. But in 2016, we had extremely warm waters off the coast of San Diego, and the seahorse population exploded. So we brought in almost 100 seahorses that year. Now, the interesting thing about that is generally we might bring in 6. And so you might wonder where aquariums sometimes get their stock. Well, they do try to raise captive animals, and they actually swap animals between aquariums worldwide. But these 2 were the first 2 that we donated, and we donated 8 to the aquarium that year. Next. These are some different things about some of the seahorses we've caught over the years. So you can see that one of those is a very pregnant male, a tiny little seahorse, and then the bottom right-hand corner is an average size female. Now the sizes really just depend on how long they've been alive, how much they get to eat, those sorts of things. But our particular species of seahorses come in different colors. They can actually change their color slowly over time to match their environment or to match a mate. So it wouldn't happen like in milliseconds like an octopus or anything. It does take a couple of days, but they do tend to be yellow, orange, brown, kind of kelp colors. You could go online to find more videos about seahorse birth, differences between the males and females, lots to explore online. Now, we try not to handle these animals, but you have to remember they do come in the net, so we do bring them out of the net and quickly take a picture and get them back in water. Next. Cynthia mentioned some of the plastic problems in the ocean. This is an interesting photo captured by Justin Hoffman, and it shows a single seahorse that's actually just moving around, grasping onto different pieces of plastic. But all the animals in the ocean are affected by the plastic problem. If you want to learn more about this particular photo, you could just Google seahorse with a Q-tip and you'll come up with that. Next. So where do all these souvenirs come from that you might find in a shop? They actually are live animals that are actually captured and dried out and sold to tourists. And so I would encourage you to avoid purchasing souvenirs that actually exploit the ocean. It would be better if you chose to instead, next. Oh, sorry. I guess I just meant to go to live stream, Yvonne.
Stop the slideshow?
Yes.
Okay.
I would encourage you just to make your own souvenirs, just using different materials. I'm really fascinated by, Cynthia inspired me on this one, just taking little boxes and decorating them, things like that. That would be a better souvenir. Take photos.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, those were all great presentations, very interesting. I know it's just the tip of the iceberg, and I know that everybody that's listening probably has questions, and I'd like to turn it over to Jeffrey Lehmann, who will sort of coordinate our Q&A period. Go for it, Jeffrey.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Lehmann. I grew up very close to La Jolla. In fact, I was born there. And I started snorkeling when I was 5 years old in La Jolla Cove. So I've been looking at these animals my whole life. And I even took care of the tanks at Scripps Institution as a volunteer in my teens. And even went so far as to help train the orcas at SeaWorld in my late teens. And now I work in television. I do a series that's called We Can Explore, and we also do some specials that are called Explore Kids. And if you want to join us after this whole presentation, Instagram's a good place to find us at Explore Kids. So we're going to start with some questions. Hi, kids. You guys all ready to ask some questions?
Give us a thumbs up if you have some questions.
Okay, let's start. Let's start with Peter. Go ahead and ask your question, Peter.
How does this project improve the lives of the animals living in the La Jolla Canyon?
All right, Cynthia, why don't you answer that one? You need to turn your mic on, Cynthia.
Thank you. So the question was, how can we improve the life of animals in the canyon?
How does the map?
How does the map improve? Excellent question. Well, one of the ways that the map helps is by educating people about these different animals and the things that affect them, like single-use plastic and overfishing. When we learn about them, we can then be prepared to make changes in our own lives that can have a positive effect on those animals. So if we stopped using single-use plastics and they stopped escaping into the ocean and into the canyons, that would be one way to help the animals. If we took Alfredo's advice and chose seafood and left a lot of the sardines and anchovies in place by making a marine protected area or places where people don't fish, that'll help the animals. And also with Lauri, if we don't collect shells and take things away when we visit the ocean, but we go home and make an art project, then we're allowing those animals to live in the canyon peacefully, have enough food, and have a rich environment.
Cynthia, I have a question for you, actually. When you were talking about the map and the information, can I take my cell phone and just scan those animals, and that's how that information comes up?
Eventually, yes. That will be one of the ways that you can find that information. If you're physically at the map, and say you were standing above one of the cute little seals, I think it's right behind me, yeah, and you were to hover your phone over, the animals are so unique. They function much like a QR code, those little black boxes we see with the little dots in. And so eventually we'll have it so you can hover over that cute little harbor seal and it will take you digitally right to the page that'll teach you more about it. And eventually we're looking into augmented reality, creating curricula, doing all sorts of exciting things.
Fantastic. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that being that happening. Okay, Paul, what's your question?
My question is, how do we help and improve the number of species of animal and population of animals in the canyon?
Cynthia, why don't you go for that one too?
Well, I think actually the first question and the second are similar in that we're both seeing and looking into ways that we can help these animals have a good, clean environment and then let their numbers recover. Well, the great thing about the La Jolla Canyon is it is designated a marine protected area. So that means that people can't come in and fish in that zone. And when we have a zone that's allowed to recover and the fish stocks or populations can thrive and grow, that has a wonderful spillover effect. So even the animals that might be just outside of the no-take zone, there will be enough animals inside that they get territorial and they'll kind of happen into other areas. So a little bit of caution and protection in one place will have a ripple effect that will continue to help animals outside.
Cynthia, is there a species that's not in the La Jolla Shores, La Jolla Cove area that was natural and we'd like to see come back, or are basically all of the native species now represented there?
Well, all of the species that you see on the map are ones that you could find there now. So there's nothing that's extinct, except for one very big notable exception. Now you'd have to be a pretty astute observer to see it, but on the map, right above where the gray whale was, there is a kind of ray called Mobula monkiana, or monk's devil ray. And actually that animal does not belong in the Pacific Ocean at all. It lives in the much warmer waters of Mexico. But the reason that particular ray is featured on the map is because it was named after Dr. Walter Munk. And one of his students discovered this incredible ray. No other ones in the world do this. They leap out of the water. They can go 15 feet or higher. And that very unique trait has kind of made them famous. And so because it was named after Walter, that's the one big question. Don't tell anybody, but that's the only animal we like to have people guess that isn't found just offshore.
Really cool. All right, Braden and Kaylee, why don't you turn on your mic and go ahead. And Braden, why don't you ask us your question?
Well, I'm muted. Yeah. Okay. I'm an 8th grade artist from New York City, and I would like to ask Lauri, what artist inspired you?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a couple of artists. One artist is an artist working in New York. He has a painting, I think I read the article quite some time ago in the New York Times, and it was called 10,000 Paintings Blooming. I could try to send you that link if you message me. But this artist actually isn't concerned with holding on to his art. He has a huge studio. He just cuts up odd pieces of plywood and he just kind of runs through and paints things. And all you do is order like a size and a price, and he sends you something. So I find that pretty fascinating. And so I was quite inspired. I have over 100 paintings out in collections worldwide. I try not to get attached to my paintings. I just try to do them and just push them out into the world. And so he was a big inspiration to me. There's another set of painters called the Florida Highwaymen. And these go back probably to more like the 50s, 60s. And they used to paint on black velvet. And so that's just kind of a collection of artists that, again, same thing, just really just doing the work, not being a frustrated artist, just putting your head down, doing the work and putting it out in the world.
Well, I love that artist that you chose because it fits in with our Earth Day theme today in recycle. And what's better than recycle is reuse. So instead of using the chemicals and all the processes and the energy needed to create canvas, he's actually making canvas from materials that have already been used. So I think that's really cool. All right, Kaylee, what's your question?
Mine is, what do seahorses eat?
Ah, seahorses eat plankton. So they love copepods. These are tiny little microscopic animals. They're a very important part of the food web. But they really support a lot of invertebrates and things like that as they're coming out of the plankton stage and moving into becoming bigger animals. But they're stealth predators. They hold on to like a piece of kelp with their tail. They wait for that animal to go by. Their eyes can kind of rotate like a chameleon's, and they just suck it in their mouth.
Wow, that is cool. I love seahorses. All right, Caleb and Knox, why don't you turn on your mic there? Knox, why don't you go ahead and ask a question?
Okay. What is the most vulnerable fish in the Southern California Ocean?
You can take that one if you want.
Yeah, Alfredo, why don't you take that question?
I think Lauri wanted to answer that.
Oh, no, feel free. I can add on.
Oh, okay.
Well, I am not sure about the objective answer. You sound like you know, like pinpoint what species to talk about.
Okay, we do have a couple of protected fish, which is Alfredo's main field in Southern California. One of those would be the Garibaldi. That's our state fish. It's gold. It's very easy to spot. That one's protected. Another animal that's protected is the giant sea bass.
Yeah.
Yes, so that one's a really important one. Now, they follow a normal migration pattern, so they're very easy to capture. They can live up to 100 years old. There's one at the Birch Aquarium that's actually been adopted by the late Walter Munk on one of his 90th something birthday. But that's an animal that does need protection. Seahorses are vulnerable mainly just because of their habitat threat.
I will add a little bit to that. So one of the cool things about having protected areas, especially in California, we have so many. We have a big network of so many marine protected areas, and that extend all the way to Mexico. Some of these areas extend further south from San Diego, going to Tijuana, and all the way to Baja. And so the cool thing is that with these international collaborations, some of these fish, like the giant sea bass, have a chance to recover because those are big animals that can move very, very long distances. So a tiny little area just in La Jolla wouldn't be enough. But what if we had a network of many marine protected areas all over the coast? Now they have a chance. So that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and I'll mention on the giant sea bass, those used to be common in the La Jolla Cove area, and you can see old historical photographs of when they used to catch them, and those are giant fish. They easily reach 6 feet or 2 meters in length, and they can reach many hundreds of pounds, and easily over 100 kilos, no problem. And as Alfredo mentioned, they live for a very long time. So to replace those animals that were overfished in the early and mid 1900s is going to take many decades. And we're only just now starting to see some big giant sea bass come into that area. So as all you kids get older and you snorkel in La Jolla Cove, you're going to be able to see stuff that I wasn't able to see as a kid, but I'm looking forward to seeing bigger sea bass return in bigger numbers. So Caleb, you're our stringer. What's your question?
My question is, do fish have a social system just like humans and bees?
I'll take that question. That's a very interesting question. And just from a scientific perspective, I can tell you we are still studying that and still trying to understand what that social system looks like. But certainly many species have it. Many species just have it for different parts of their life. Some of them are like for eating, they get organized for eating. Some of them get organized for mating, and they have these complex rituals in which the males and the females dance for hours until they choose their perfect partner, and then they finally become a couple. So there are many ways in which they have social systems. I am sure, have you seen Finding Nemo? You will remember this scene in which some little tiny fish go inside the mouths of bigger fish to clean them. That's some sort of social behavior and some sort of cooperation between different species. So we are still understanding the details of all of this, but certainly fish have social behavior, and it happens in many parts of their lives.
And Caleb had one final great question. I'm going to let him ask it, and then we're going to knock it off to our professionals to all maybe pitch in on that question.
what can we do as kids to help the ocean?
All right, now I'm going to start, and the biggest thing that really irks me, bothers me, is when people are drinking out of single-use plastic water bottles. There's really no need for that. It's really easy to get reusable water bottles and take them with you. And it has so much harm, not only on the oceans, because as those plastics biodegrade, they end up in the whole food chain, and then we ultimately end up eating them, and that's bad for our health. So I think the number one thing I can mention for my part is that we don't use any single-use plastic bottles to drink water from. And then let's go ahead and let's open that up to Lauri to be the next one if she has a little tip.
Sure, I would agree with the plastic problem. I would say that plastics really haven't been around that long, probably more like from the 50s. And so I used to think it was like my parents that caused that problem, but I realized that it's my generation has allowed that to go on and to actually consume more plastic than maybe we did in an earlier time in life. Now with COVID, I'm seeing that we maybe need to have some of our food wrapped in plastic. But I would encourage your generation through that STEAM field to find replacements for that. Plastics that can be made from plant-based materials that decompose. There's some wonderful videos out where you can take existing plastics and put them through a shredder, almost like a meat grinder, extrude them and use them in your 3D printers, things like that. Let's use the plastic we've already created. Let's get away from producing additional plastic in the world. And that would be a challenge that I would give to all of the next generations, is to correct those mistakes that my parents and my generation bought into with plastic.
And I think it's important to point out that really plastic water bottles, they've only been around for maybe 15 years, maybe 20 years max. So really that's kind of, that's even after our kind of generations as being kids. Alfredo, do you have something to suggest for us today?
Yes, I do have something. My advice will be to learn as much as you can about the ocean. The more you know about it, the more you will love it, the more you can teach to your parents, to your friends, to people around you. So just learn about the ocean, love the ocean, make people around you love the ocean, and you'll find ways to take care of it. And the important thing to remember here is that in 10, 15, 20 years, you are going to be the head of a company, you are going to be a scientist, you are going to be those professionals, but that now will care about the ocean and will love the ocean, and you will do great things for that. So starting now as a kid, learn about the ocean, learn to love it, go swim if you can, teach your parents and teach your friends, and that will have huge effects in the long term.
And I want to jump along with what Alfredo said, and I think you can become storytellers at any age. You can tell your friends, you can tell your parents. Not everybody's going to see this presentation and learn what you learned today, but if you tell one person and they tell one person, it'll really make a difference. You can become an influencer, and you think that it doesn't make a difference, but it really truly does. The more people that you tell and you talk about it, and you tell your stories and you carry on a conversation and you read the latest information and news about this, that's very significant.
That's great. Cynthia, what do you suggest?
Well, these were all excellent points that you guys made. Education is a big part of that, and finding places that you can get that information. So I would invite everybody watching to stay tuned to what's happening with the map. The Walter Munk Foundation for the Ocean will be posting on our website as we continue this process, and once it's up and goes live. You can follow us on Facebook. Jeffrey's got wonderful Instagram feeds. There's you can follow the wave painter Lauri and Alfredo's work. So you've kind of got us as your ocean friends. You can reach back out to us, but to continue to learn and then find ways that you can actually get involved. So if you happen to be in San Diego, join the Munk Foundation for a monthly cleanup where we clean up debris on the beach and learn, get to hear from people and do some citizen science. And if you live inland, just knowing how to manage your trash so it doesn't escape into the river and down below will have a big effect. So
that's great. And again, I'll mention, if you want to join the conversation a little bit, I'm at Instagram at Explore Kids, and you can, if you tag us in an image of you doing something outdoors in the marine world and in the ocean, we'll probably repost it. So that'd be great. And we'd love to hear from you and have you join us in that conversation. Anybody else have something? And I'm going to throw it back to Yvonne.
Yeah, so we do have a few extra minutes. I'd like to open it up to Elena and Kathleen, either to share their thoughts or a question if you have any. Just maybe say who you are, and then, you know, if you want to have a comment or a question, please, this is the time to do it. Elena?
Yes, hi. Thanks again to everyone. It was really interesting. My name is Elena Yulaeva. I'm a climatologist by education. I worked at Scripps Institution of Oceanography for many years. I was actually studying the influence of climate change on sardines at some point. And I really enjoyed all the presentation. And my question is, as just a citizen, how we can help not just the ocean, but also the Walter Munk Foundation to continue its mission and continue doing this wonderful work that you're doing.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Yes, to get involved with the foundation. If you don't live in San Diego, then please continue to follow the work that we do, developing the map. Maybe you have some idea that we haven't even thought of yet. So if kids can, once we launch the first phase of it, take a look at it, show your friends, and if you've got ideas, we want to hear them. So my email, I'll put that in the chat bar. Anybody can send me an email, and I would be happy to take all suggestions. And if you do live in the San Diego area, then join us for a monthly program called Meet Me at the Map. And that's where we'll do citizen science and a bit of a beach cleanup. And if you're very far away and donating money to help support the programs is your thing, you can go to our website and find out how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Great. And Kathleen, do you have a question or a comment?
I have more of a comment. I think this was wonderful. It was very informative, unlike a lot of people that are making presentations and they know about the oceans and the creatures in the oceans and been very involved. As an artist and designer, I have not been, I've been aware, of course, as a person, a citizen of this world, I'm aware of what we're doing and all the plastic that's around. But to learn about the creatures in the ocean and to see this incredible map that helps people become informed about it, it was really interesting. I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Keep doing it.
So I think we've come to the end of the Q&A period. Cynthia, do you have any last words before we sort of close this down?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to thank Jeffrey, Yvonne, Alfredo, everybody that is involved, because it was really just about a week ago that we realized we needed to do something for the 50th anniversary for Earth Day. And I wish we had thought of this and had been doing this for months, but in just a few short days, everybody put their hearts and their time and their minds into it. And now here we all are enjoying this moment. So I'd really like to thank everyone for their dedication, and all of the kids for your great questions, and you're bringing your fresh viewpoint to all of it. So thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. So I also want to thank everyone. And as we've acknowledged, today is officially Earth Day, but just like Mother's Day should be every day, we think Earth Day should be every day. So once again, I want to say that your call of action is to post something meaningful on social media, whatever social media you use, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it happens to be. telling others what you learned today. It can just be one sentence and maybe a link to this presentation. This presentation will be available in a few hours. And so tell everybody what you learned, and also state your commitment to rethink single-use plastics. When you do so, it would be really helpful if you use the hashtags Earth Day 2020 and Walter Munk Foundation. And with that, I think we're going to sign off, officially sign off. Everybody wave.
Thank you.
Bye,
everybody.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy